6 months after the convergence, the elven capital had transformed. The once isolated crystal spires now integrated with human architecture. Technology from both civilizations merged, creating something new. Research centers rose alongside ancient gardens. Elven artisans worked with human engineers, developing hybrid systems that combined magic and science. The wounds of war slowly healed as cooperation replaced conflict. Jack walked through the central plaza where humans and elves mingled freely. The plaza surrounded the newly established Convergence Academy, a place where both species studied the knowledge revealed during the cosmic alignment. Ember flew overhead, much larger, now the size of a small shuttle, his presence a constant reminder of the changes that had occurred. General Kate Russell, now Ambassador Russell, approached Jack, her military uniform replaced by diplomatic attire. She had been appointed as Earth's official representative, a position that recognized both her leadership skills and her first-hand experience with the convergence. Harper, she greeted him formally, though her expression had softened over months of working together. The diplomatic team from Earth arrives today. The president herself is coming. Jack nodded, adjusting the collar of his new uniform. He no longer served in the traditional military structure. Instead, he led the Weaver Integration Program, identifying and training humans with awakened abilities. The patterns on his skin had stabilized, silver lines that occasionally glowed when he accessed his abilities. He had learned to control them, channel the energy for specific purposes, simple tasks like healing minor injuries or sensing energy fluctuations. "Is Lyra ready for this meeting?" Jack asked. "The president has questions that only she can answer." Russell smiled slightly. "Princess Lyra has proven to be quite the diplomat. She handles the Elven Provisional Council better than any human negotiator could teach our State Department a few things." They walked together toward the Temple of Eternal Light, now transformed into an interdimensional research facility. The ancient structure had been modified with laboratories, observation decks, and secure areas where the most dangerous knowledge remained protected. "How many now?" Russell asked quietly. Jack understood the question. 812 humans with confirmed Weaver heritage. Most with minimal manifestation, increased intuition. Dreams of other worlds, occasional glimpses of patterns. 17 with abilities similar to mine, though less developed. 3 with significant power. Russell processed this information. Earth governments tracked the awakened humans carefully. Some viewed them as assets, others as potential threats. The balance remained delicate. And the elves? How are they adapting? Jack gestured to a group of elven children playing with human children in a nearby garden. The youngest generation adapts quickly. They have no memory of stolen power. They develop, their natural abilities instead modest but authentic. Most adults struggle. The knowledge that their civilization was built on theft has shattered their identity. Some embrace change. Others resist. A shadow passed overhead as Ember circled the temple. The guardian creature had become something of a symbol to both species. A reminder of ancient powers and new possibilities. Jack and Russell entered the temple, walking through corridors that hummed with energy. The central chamber where Lyra had once been chained now housed the Dimensional Observatory, a place where researchers studied the barriers between worlds. The pool of liquid light remained at its center, constantly shifting and changing. Lyra stood beside the pool, deep in conversation with Lord Orion and Lady Selene. The elven nobles had become key allies in the transition, their knowledge of elven society proving invaluable. Lyra wore a simple white dress adorned with silver symbols. Her appearance had continued to evolve. Her once dull silver hair now contained strands of cosmic black tiny stars, seeming to move within them. She sensed Jack's arrival and looked up, smiling. The connection between them pulsed stronger than ever. A bond formed during crisis now deepened through months of shared purpose. "Ambassador Russell," she greeted. "Are the preparations complete?" Russell nodded. "The diplomatic team arrives in 1 hour. Security protocols are in place. The Elven Provisional Council has approved the agenda." Lyra turned to the elven nobles. "You should prepare your presentation. The human scientists will have many questions." Lord Orion bowed respectfully. "We are ready, Princess. The medical knowledge we share today will save countless lives on both worlds." The nobles departed, leaving Jack, Lyra, and Russell beside the pool of light. Ember flew down from the ceiling landing beside Lyra. He had grown again now, the size of a large predator, his wings folded against his body as he settled. Watching the humans with intelligent eyes. "Do you trust them?" Russell asked once the elves were gone. Lyra stroked Ember's scales thoughtfully. "Trust grows slowly, ambassador-like healing after injury. The elves who work with us now have demonstrated their commitment through actions, not words. Those who cannot accept the new reality have retreated to distant provinces clinging to fading glory." Jack studied the pool of light. Within its depths, he occasionally glimpsed other worlds, parallel dimensions, separated by thin barriers. The knowledge was both fascinating and terrifying. "The President will want access to gateway technology," Russell said quietly. "Her advisors believe it could solve Earth's resource problems, exploration challenges, military vulnerabilities." Lyra exchanged a glance with Jack, both recognizing the familiar pattern. The temptation that had corrupted the elves now presented itself to humanity. "The gateway remains closed," Lyra said firmly. "This is non-negotiable. The cosmic alignment happens once every 10,000 years. For good reason. Barriers between dimensions exist for protection, not just restriction. Tell your president that humanity is not ready for such power. No species is. The knowledge we share advances medicine, energy, production, environmental, restoration. These benefits come without the dangers of dimensional manipulation." Russell sighed. "I expected that answer, but I had to ask." Jack placed his hand near the pool, not touching the liquid light, but feeling its energy. The patterns on his skin responded, glowing softly. "Ambassador, the knowledge already shared has advanced human science by centuries. Medical treatments that once seemed impossible are now routine. Energy problems that plagued Earth are being solved. Isn't that enough?" Russell smiled ruefully. "You sound less human every day." "Harper, do I?" Jack asked. "Or more human, questioning limits, seeking knowledge but recognizing boundaries." Before Russell could respond, a young human woman entered the chamber. She moved with purpose, her steps confident, though she appeared nervous in such distinguished company. Lieutenant Olivia Scott saw them and straightened to attention. "Ambassador, the advance team has arrived. They request Princess Lyra's presence at the landing platform." Russell nodded. "We should go. The diplomatic protocols must be observed." Lyra whispered something to Ember. The guardian creature took flight, exiting through an opening in the ceiling, his task known only to them. The landing platform extended from the highest point of the elven capital. A flat crystal surface large enough to accommodate the largest human ships. The diplomatic vessel from Earth had already touched down, its sleek design incorporating both human engineering and elven aesthetics. A symbol of the cooperation developing between worlds. A honor guard of both human soldiers and elven sentinels lined the pathway, their uniforms and armor complementary rather than contrasting. Another visual representation of the new alliance. Jack, Lyra, Russell, and Olivia took their positions as the ship's main hatch opened. The Earth delegation emerged, led by the President herself, a woman of commanding presence with keen intelligence evident in her eyes. She surveyed the elven capital with unconcealed wonder. President Andrea Hayes, Ambassador Russell stepped forward. "Welcome to Sylvan Prime." The President nodded, acknowledging the greeting before turning her attention to Lyra. "Princess, I presume your reputation precedes you. The reports from our scientific team speak highly of your knowledge and cooperation." Lyra bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, not submission. "I welcome you, President Hayes. Your journey across the stars demonstrates Earth's commitment to this new alliance." The formal introductions continued as the delegation moved toward the diplomatic center, a structure built specifically for these negotiations. Jack walked slightly behind Lyra and the President. Observing the interaction, Hayes spoke with diplomatic precision, but Jack sensed her underlying emotions: awe at the elven architecture, curiosity about Lyra, and something else. Ambition, the human desire to expand, grow, evolve. The same drive that had helped humanity survive countless challenges, now focused on the opportunities presented by this new relationship. The diplomatic center featured a circular chamber with seating arranged to eliminate hierarchy. No head of the table, no position of dominance. A lesson learned from past mistakes. As the delegates took their seats, Jack noticed a subtle change in the energy of the room. The patterns on his skin responded, growing warmer. He glanced at Lyra, who had also noticed. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. President Hayes opened a digital portfolio, the contents unseen. By others I bring greetings from Earth and all her colonies. We stand at a historic crossroads. The knowledge shared these past months has already transformed our society. Medical breakthroughs, energy solutions, environmental restoration. My scientists tell me we've advanced our technology by at least a century. Possibly more, Lyra acknowledged this with a graceful gesture. We are pleased the knowledge serves humanity well. The days following the convergence brought dramatic changes to both human and elven societies. General Kate Russell established a secure perimeter around the Temple of Eternal Light. Scientists and military specialists swarmed the ancient structure, studying the transformed chamber and the pool of liquid light. Human leaders on Earth demanded explanations for the energy surge that had been detected across 3 star systems. Jack stood before a council of human military officials in what had once been the elven throne room. The elegant crystal seat of the High King now sat empty. The chamber felt different. Smaller somehow, less imposing. The magic that had made it grand was gone, replaced by merely impressive architecture. General Russell paced before the assembled officers, her face stern. Lieutenant Harper, your actions constitute a clear violation of chain of command. You engaged with an alien entity without authorization, participated in an event that could be classified as a weapon of mass destruction, and withheld critical intelligence from your superiors. Jack remained at attention, his dress uniform uncomfortable but necessary for the formal proceedings. The patterns on his skin had faded to faint silver lines visible only. In certain light, General, I acted to prevent the Elven royal family from weaponizing dimensional technology against humanity, Jack said. My assessment indicated immediate action was required. Russell stopped pacing and faced him directly. Your assessment, she shook her head. You allowed an alien influence to affect your judgment, Harper. The patterns on your skin, the connection to Princess Lyra. How do we know you weren't compromised? A murmur ran through the assembled officers. Some looked at Jack with suspicion, others with curiosity. A few with poorly hidden fear. Jack met the general's gaze. I was not compromised, General. My actions prevented a catastrophe. The Elven royals planned to use the convergence to access weapons and technology beyond our comprehension. They would have resumed the war with capabilities we could not hope to match. Captain Mary Chen, one of the senior intelligence officers, leaned forward. Lieutenant Harper, what exactly happened in the temple? Our sensors recorded energy, levels that exceeded anything in our database, but the readings made no sense. Almost as if reality itself was being rewritten. Jack finished for her. That is precisely what was happening. Captain, the temple contains a gateway between dimensions. Elven royals were forcing Princess Lyra to open that gateway prematurely. General Russell crossed her arms, and you stopped them. How exactly? Before Jack could answer, the chamber doors opened. Princess Lyra entered, flanked by 2 human guards. Ember, perched on her shoulder, no longer hiding his true nature. The small dragon-like creature watched the assembled humans with intelligent eyes. His scales shifted colors from blue to purple to green. The human guards seemed nervous in Ember's presence, but Lyra walked with calm dignity. Her appearance had changed dramatically since the convergence. She no longer looked frail. Her silver hair shimmered with inner light. Her movements were graceful and assured. She wore a simple white dress that seemed to glow against her skin. The guards will not be necessary. General Russell, Lyra said, her voice musical yet carrying authority. I am here as an ally, not a prisoner. Russell nodded to the guards. They stepped back but remained alert. Lyra approached the council. Her presence changed the energy in the room. The officers sat straighter, some leaning forward with interest, others back, as if wary. What Lieutenant Harper did was save your species from extinction, Lyra said. She gestured, and a holographic image appeared above the council table showing the elven royal family performing their ritual in the temple. The visualization was so perfect, it seemed they could reach out and touch it. The elven royals planned to access weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They would have resumed the war with force you could not resist. They saw humanity as a threat because some of you carry dormant Weaver blood. The ritual you witnessed was interrupted before completion. Had it succeeded, the Elven Empire would now control dimensional technology, allowing them to strike anywhere without warning. The hologram shifted, showing devastating attacks on Earth and human colonies. The images were vivid ships appearing from nowhere, cities reduced to ash, millions dead. The council members watched in horror. General Russell studied the projection. How do we know this isn't manipulation? Princess, a convenient story to justify Harper's actions. Lyra smiled sadly. You do not. The patterns of power and fear repeat throughout history on countless worlds. Trust is difficult, especially after war. But consider what has happened. The Elven royal family has lost their enhanced abilities. Their ships no longer function at full capacity. Their weapons have diminished power. Are these the actions of someone seeking to manipulate you? Or someone who has given up advantage? An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The logic was difficult to dismiss. Major Adam Hall. The chief military scientist cleared his throat. The readings from the temple match what the princess describes, General. The energy signature shows dimensional distortions, consistent with some kind of gateway technology, and the Elven military capabilities have decreased by approximately 60% since the event. Russell turned to Jack. What exactly are you now, Lieutenant? Your medical scans show anomalies. Your DNA has been altered. Jack looked at his hands where the silver patterns occasionally shimmered. I am still human, General, just a human with activated Weaver genetics. The patterns allow me to sense energy flows, manipulate them to a limited degree. Nothing that threatens Earth or our military. And the Princess Russell asked, what is she to you now? Bond servant, ally. Something more. Jack glanced at Lyra. Their connection hummed between them, a silent communication beyond words. Princess Lyra is a representative of the Weavers, a species that existed on this world long before the elves arrived. She offers an alliance between her people and humanity. An exchange of knowledge rather than theft. Lyra stepped forward, placing a small crystal on the council table. The crystal floated above the surface, rotating slowly. Inside, swirled galaxies and stars, miniature representations of vast cosmic structures. This contains scientific knowledge freely given, she said, not stolen or forced knowledge earned by my ancestors over millennia of exploration. It includes medical advances that could cure your most devastating diseases, propulsion systems that do not require fuel, defensive shields that make weapons obsolete. The council members stared at the crystal, their expressions mixed between wonder and suspicion. Why would you share this with us? Captain Chen asked. Why help humans when we were at war with your captors? Lyra touched Ember gently, the creature chirping in response. Because unlike the elves, you ask why. You question, you seek to understand, before taking. Jack proved this. He saw me as I truly was, not as what he could gain from me. Your species has capacity for both great destruction and great creation. I believe the latter can prevail. General Russell studied the crystal, then looked at Jack. What do you recommend? Lieutenant. Jack stepped forward. I recommend a joint research initiative between human scientists and Princess Lyra. I recommend we share this knowledge with Earth, gradually implementing advances that will benefit humanity. But most importantly, I recommend we learn from the Elven mistake. Power without wisdom leads to downfall. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some officers arguing for caution, others for immediate exploitation of the new knowledge. Russell raised her hand, silencing them. "We will need time to consider these developments," she said. "Lieutenant Harper, you will remain under observation but not detention. Princess Lyra will be granted diplomatic status pending approval from Earth Command." This council is adjourned, as the officers filed out of the chamber. Jack and Lyra remained behind. Ember flew from her shoulder, circling the room before landing on a crystal formation. His scales shifted to match the crystal, becoming nearly invisible. "Were they convinced?" Lyra asked when they were alone. Jack shrugged. "Humans are naturally suspicious, but they're also curious. The promise of new knowledge is a powerful motivator." Lyra moved to a window overlooking the elven capital. The city had changed since the convergence. The buildings were still beautiful, but the otherworldly glow had diminished. The elves themselves moved differently, with less arrogance, more purpose. "The transition will be difficult for them," she said. "The elves built their identity on stolen power. For millennia they believed themselves superior. Now they must learn to exist without that advantage. Some will adapt, others will resist." Jack joined her at the window. "Do you regret what happened?" Lyra turned to him, starlight reflecting in her eyes. "I regret the suffering, but not the outcome. Balance has been restored. The elves must earn their achievements now, as all species should. My only concern is whether humans will follow the same path." Jack watched an elven child playing in a garden below. The child created small illusions, flowers that bloomed and faded in seconds, simple magic born of natural ability, not stolen power. "There is hope in that," he said, pointing to the child born with less. "They may build more." Lyra smiled. "That is why the Weavers chose Earth thousands of years ago. They saw that potential." They walked together through corridors that had once been forbidden to humans. Guards nodded respectfully as they passed. The power dynamic had shifted completely in just days. Lieutenant Olivia Scott waited for them in a small courtyard. She had been appointed as liaison between human forces and Lyra, a position that required diplomacy and caution. Liv, Jack greeted her. "Any news from Earth?" Olivia handed him a tablet, the joint. Jack and Olivia raced through the streets of the elven capital. Chaos surrounded them. Elven civilians fled in the opposite direction, their faces filled with terror. Buildings shook as Ember flew overhead. The guardian creature, once disguised as a small dragon, was now massive, its wingspan blocking the sun when it passed. Jack felt a strange connection to Ember, like an invisible tether pulling him toward the temple. His arm patterns glowed brighter with each step closer to the ancient structure. The patterns no longer stayed hidden beneath his uniform. They shone through the fabric with violet light. Olivia kept pace beside him, her tactical training evident in how she scanned for threats. "We need backup, Harper," she said. "This is bigger than us." Jack shook his head. "No time. Besides, who would believe us? The elven royal family has manipulated both species for centuries." A squad of elven royal guards appeared ahead, blocking their path. Their armor gleamed silver and blue, elegant yet deadly. They raised crystal weapons that hummed with energy. "Halt, human," the lead guard commanded. "This area is restricted by order of the High King." Jack felt something shift inside him, the dormant power in his blood awakening further. He raised his hand, without thinking. Violet energy sparked between his fingers. The patterns on his skin pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The elven guards hesitated, their weapons wavering. "You carry the taint," the lead guard whispered. "You are abomination." Jack smiled, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than before. "The abomination your king fears." He stepped forward. "I need to speak with Princess Lyra." The guards raised their weapons again. "You will come with us, human. The High King will decide your fate." Olivia drew her sidearm. Standard human military issue. It looked primitive compared to the elven crystal weapons, but Jack knew it could still kill. "I suggest you step aside," she said. "We have no quarrel with you, but we will reach the temple before the confrontation could escalate." A deafening roar shook the ground. Ember descended from above, landing behind Jack and Olivia. The ground cracked beneath his weight. His tail swept across the street, shattering decorative crystal formations. His eyes glowed with inner fire, and steam rose from his nostrils. The elven guards broke formation, backing away, their discipline crumbling at the sight of the guardian creature. One dropped his weapon and ran. The others followed quickly, abandoning their posts. Ember lowered his massive head until he was eye level with Jack. The creature that had once perched on Lyra's shoulder now stood taller than a transport vehicle. His scales rippled with colors from deep purple to cosmic black, tiny stars seeming to move within them. Jack felt Lyra's presence through his connection with Ember. She was alive, but in pain. They were hurting her, draining her energy to activate the gateway. Prematurely, Jack placed his hand on Ember's snout. The guardian creature growled softly. "Can you take us to the temple?" Fast Ember lowered his body in clear invitation. Jack climbed onto the creature's back, then helped Olivia up behind him. She gripped his waist tightly. "This is not what I expected when I joined the Earth Defense Force," she muttered. Ember spread his massive wings and launched into the air. The force pushed Jack and Olivia back. They held on desperately as the guardian creature soared above the elven capital. The view was breathtaking. Crystal spires rose like frozen fountains. Living buildings grew from massive trees, gardens floated on platforms connected by rainbow bridges. But Jack had eyes only for the Temple of Eternal Light. The ancient structure stood apart from the rest of the city, surrounded by a perfect circle of white stone. Its architecture was different from the organic elven buildings, more geometric and precise, with angles that seemed to bend in impossible ways. As they approached, Jack saw energy coursing around the temple, forming a dome of purple light. Ember roared and dove toward the temple. Royal guards on the perimeter looked up in horror. Some fired their weapons. Energy bolts struck Ember's scales but dissipated without effect. The guardian creature landed in the courtyard, crushing elegant statues beneath his claws. Jack and Olivia slid from his back. Ember immediately took to the air again. Circling the temple like a protective sentinel, the temple entrance was sealed with a crystal door etched with symbols that hurt to look at directly. The pattern shifted and moved as if alive. Jack approached the door, the patterns on his skin resonating with those on the crystal. His vision blurred as memories not his own flooded his mind. Ancient knowledge passed down through Weaver blood. "These are not elven symbols," he said to Olivia. "They are Weaver script. The instructions for opening gateways between dimensions." Olivia kept watch, her weapon ready. Human soldiers would soon arrive along with more elven guards. Their time was limited. "How do we get in?" Jack placed his hand on the crystal door. His patterns aligned with the symbols. The door shimmered, then dissolved, revealing a long corridor that sloped downward. The walls glowed with soft blue light. They entered cautiously. The door reformed. Behind them, sealing them inside, the corridor led deep beneath the temple. Each step took them further from the surface, further from help. "Do you hear that?" Olivia whispered. A low humming sound filled the air. It vibrated through the floor into their bones. The deeper they went, the louder it became. Not unpleasant, but powerful, like standing next to massive engines. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, larger than seemed possible given the size of the temple above. The ceiling arched hundreds of feet overhead, supported by columns that resembled frozen waterfalls. In the center of the chamber stood a platform surrounded by concentric rings of crystal. Each ring rotated independently around the platform, moving at different speeds. On the platform, bound by chains of light, lay Princess Lyra. Her body arched in pain as energy was drained from her, flowing into the rings. Her once dull skin now glowed brilliantly, the light pulsing with each beat of her heart. The patterns on her skin matched those on Jack's arms but covered her entire body. Around the platform stood 7 elven royals, their hands raised as they chanted in an ancient language. Jack recognized the High King among them. The elves wore ceremonial robes adorned with symbols stolen from Weaver culture. They had formed a circle around Lyra, each connected to her by streams of violet energy. "They are using her as a conduit," Jack said, anger rising within him. "They can't open the gateway themselves, so they force her to do it." A female elf separated from the others, approaching Jack and Olivia. She wore armor rather than robes and carried a staff topped with a crystal that pulsed with the same rhythm as the chains binding Lyra. "Welcome, Lieutenant Harper." The elf smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. "I am Lady Dawn, Royal Mage to the High King. We have been expecting you." Olivia raised her weapon, but Lady Dawn waved her hand dismissively. The weapon flew from Olivia's grasp, clattering across the chamber floor. "How predictable humans and their primitive tools," Lady Dawn said. The mage turned her attention to Jack. "Your presence completes our ritual. We sensed weaver blood in your species, but never imagined it would manifest so strongly. You have saved us considerable effort by coming here willingly." Jack felt the power inside him building, responding to Lyra's pain and his own anger. The patterns on his skin spread, covering more of his body. "You are killing her, lady." Dawn shrugged elegantly. "Such drama she is fulfilling her purpose, as all weavers should. Her kind exists to serve as conduits to greater power. The universe is vast, Lieutenant Harper, filled with wonders and knowledge beyond imagination. With each convergence we harvest more, extending our dominion." "Why?" Jack asked. "Why steal from other realms? Why not build your own achievements?" The mage laughed. "Why struggle when we can simply take? Thousands of years ago, we discovered the weavers and their ability to open gateways. We saw the opportunity and seized. At each convergence we reach further, taking what we need. Technology, science, art. We bring it all back to our realm, improving our civilization. Without effort, without the messiness of development and growth." Jack stepped forward. "But at what cost? Enslaving an entire species, keeping them weak so they can't resist." Lady Dawn studied him curiously. "Such concern for a creature you barely know, how very human." "The cost is irrelevant, Lieutenant. The strong take from the weak. That is the natural order. The convergence approaches the barriers between dimensions thin. With both you and the princess, we can reach further than ever before, perhaps even to the realm of the gods themselves." Behind Lady Dawn, the ritual intensified. The rotating rings moved faster. The chanting grew louder. Lyra screamed in agony as more energy was pulled from her body. Jack felt her pain through their connection. His own patterns burned in response. He looked at Olivia. She nodded, understanding without words. They needed to disrupt the ritual. Olivia suddenly lunged at Lady Dawn. The mage turned, surprised by the direct physical attack, her concentration broken. Olivia managed to knock the crystal staff from her hands. It fell to the floor with a resonant chime. Jack seized the opportunity, racing toward the platform. The elven royals were too focused on the ritual to notice his approach until he was upon them. He jumped onto the platform beside Lyra. The chains of light binding her reacted to his presence, growing brighter. The High King shouted, in anger, "Stop him." But it was too late. Jack placed his hands on Lyra's chains where they bound her wrists. The patterns on his skin aligned with hers. Power flowed between them, forming a circuit. The chains shattered, releasing cascades of energy. The elven royal staggered back as the ritual collapsed. The rotating rings slowed, then stopped. The humming sound changed pitch, becoming discordant. Lyra opened her. 2 weeks passed since Jack claimed Princess Lyra as his bondservant. The human military base buzzed with rumors about his strange choice. Some soldiers thought Jack had lost his mind during the final battle. Others believed he had secret orders from Earth Command. A few suggested more personal reasons, given the elven reputation for beauty, regardless of their apparent frailty. Jack requested private quarters away from the main compound. A small dwelling on the edge of the human settlement, close to the ancient forest that surrounded the elven capital. His request raised eyebrows, but Commander Susan Miller approved it. His service record earned him special consideration, even if his judgment seemed questionable lately. Each morning, Jack and Lyra walked the perimeter of the human settlement, Ember always with them, growing slightly larger each day. The dragon now resembled a medium-sized dog, with scales that shifted colors based on Lyra's emotions. When they were alone, Ember would spread his wings and practice short flights. The bond between princess and dragon was unlike anything Jack had seen before. They communicated without words, sharing thoughts and feelings through some invisible connection. During these walks, Jack noticed how Lyra grew stronger day by day. Away from the elven palace, her skin began to glow with a subtle light. Her silver hair regained its luster. Her steps became sure and graceful. She still appeared delicate compared to other elves, but the sickly weakness was fading. Lieutenant Olivia Scott watched these changes with growing suspicion. One morning she joined their walk, falling into step beside Jack, while Lyra walked ahead with Ember. "She looks different," Harper Olivia said, keeping her voice low, not so frail anymore. "Care to explain?" Jack shrugged. "Fresh air, regular exercise distance from court politics. It does wonders for the health." Olivia frowned. "Intelligence reports you two spend hours in that cabin with the blinds drawn. No surveillance. Can penetrate the wall. Something is blocking our sensors. The brass is getting nervous, Harper." "What are you hiding?" Jack stopped walking, forcing Olivia to stop as well. "I earned my privacy. Lived 27 combat missions, 3 Purple Hearts, and more alien kills than anyone in the regiment. If the brass has concerns, they can address them directly." Olivia studied his face. "They have concerns about her too. That creature with her. It's growing. Some xenobiologists think it's not a pet at all." Jack smiled. "You always were observant. The elves call it a dragon, but you're right, it's something else entirely. Something much more important." Lyra had noticed their conversation and turned back. Her violet eyes met Jack's briefly before she continued walking. Ember growled softly at Olivia. "Why did you really choose her?" "Jack?" Olivia asked. "We grew up together in the Chicago Dome. I know when you're working." An angle. Jack watched Lyra as she knelt to examine a flower, her movements elegant and precise. "I chose her because she chose me first. I just didn't know it at the time." That night in their cabin, Jack and Lyra sat across from each other, a map of the elven capital spread between them. Ember curled around Lyra, his body now the size of a wolf. His scales hardened into armor like plates, and small sparks escaped his nostrils when he exhaled. Jack pointed to a structure near the center of the city, the Temple of Eternal Light. "According to our intelligence, it's the oldest building in the capital, predating even the royal palace." Lyra nodded. "It is ancient, built by the first ones before my ancestors claimed this world. The royal family tells everyone it is a place of worship, but it is actually a containment facility." Jack looked up. "What exactly does it contain?" Lyra hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns on Ember's scales, the gateway between dimensions. "The source of all elven power." Jack leaned forward. "Tell me about the Weavers, your people. The real history, not the sanitized version. The Elven King shares a diplomatic functions." Lyra took a deep breath. "The beings your people call elves are not native to this dimension. They came as refugees fleeing a dying universe, my ancestors the Void. Weavers welcomed them. The Weavers could create passages between realms, a gift from the cosmos itself." Ember growled, his scales shifting to deep blue as Lyra continued. "The elves were grateful at first. They learned from the Weavers, studied their abilities, but they grew jealous and afraid. The Weaver gift could not be taught or stolen. It was tied to our essence. Our bodies channel cosmic energy, weaving the fabric of reality itself. The elves decided if they could not have the power, they would control those who did." Jack studied the faint glowing patterns. On his arms they became visible the first time he stepped onto elven soil. Faint at first, but growing stronger each day near Lyra. "How did humans come to have Weaver blood?" Lyra smiled, a rare expression that transformed her face. "Not all Weavers were captured. Some escaped to other dimensions. Some found Earth millennia ago when humans were still primitive. They lived among your ancestors, sharing their lives and sometimes their blood. The elven royal family launched the war against humanity because they discovered some humans carried dormant Weaver genes. They feared what would happen if those genes awakened. Outside their window, the 3 moons grew closer to alignment. The celestial event would reach its peak in just over 2 weeks." Jack rolled up the map and the convergence. "What happens when the moons align?" Lyra stood walking to the window, Ember following close behind. The barriers between dimensions grow thin. The Weaver power reaches its peak. It happens once every 10,000 years. The Elven royal family has used each convergence to steal more knowledge, more technology from other realms. This is how they built their empire, and this convergence. Jack asked. Lyra turned, her eyes glowing in the moonlight. This time will be different. Because of you, because of Ember. The royal family believes all the guardian creatures were killed generations ago. They think I am the last Weaver, too weak to pose any threat. But they are wrong. Jack joined her at the window. What makes this time different? Lyra took his hand, placing it on Ember's head. The dragon scales warmed beneath his touch. Jack felt a strange connection form, a triangle of energy flowing between the three of them. The next morning, General Kate Russell summoned Jack to her office. He stood at attention before her desk as she reviewed reports on her tablet. Lieutenant Harper. She began looking up from her screen. I have concerns about your arrangement with the Elven princess. Jack maintained a neutral expression. May I ask the nature of these concerns? General Russell set down her tablet and leaned forward. Our surveillance team has detected unusual energy readings from your quarters. Energy that matches signatures from Elven weapon systems used against us during the war. Jack said nothing. Additionally, Russell continued. Your Elven princess is not as frail as she appeared during the selection ceremony. Medical scans taken discreetly show significant improvements in her vital signs, muscle density, and neural activity. And her petit grows larger each day. I wasn't aware the princess was under medical surveillance. General Jack said, keeping his voice level. Everything on this base is monitored. Lieutenant Harper, especially potentially valuable. Assets like Elven royalty. Russell stood and walked around her desk. Now would you care to explain what you're doing with Princess Lyra? Jack met her gaze respectfully. With all due respect, General, my relationship with the princess is personal. The terms of the selection ceremony grant each soldier autonomy regarding their chosen bondservant. Russell raised an eyebrow. Personal. Is that why you've been studying ancient Elven architecture? The Temple of Eternal Light, specifically your search history, was flagged by security. Jack tensed slightly. The general had been monitoring him more closely than he realized. I have an interest in Elven history and culture. Understanding their civilization helps build better relations. Russell laughed, without humor. Save it, Harper. I know a tactical assessment when I see one. The question is, why are you planning an operation without authorization? And what does your princess have to do with it? Before Jack could answer, alarms blared throughout the base. Red emergency lights flashed in the office. A voice came over the intercom. All personnel to battle stations. Unidentified energy surge detected near the Elven Royal Palace. Russell grabbed her tactical tablet's security feed. Now she commanded. The screen showed the Elven Palace surrounded by a strange purple light. Energy arced between buildings. Elven guards ran in formation toward the source of the disturbance, the Temple of Eternal Light. They are starting early, Jack said quietly. They must have realized what Lyra is. Russell turned to him. What did you say, Lieutenant? Jack looked at the general. The Elven royal family is accessing the dimensional gateway before the convergence. They must know about Lyra and me. They won't wait for the alignment. What? Are you talking about Harper? The general demanded. Jack headed for the door. I need to find Lyra. Now he ran through the base, ignoring shouts from fellow soldiers. The alarms continued to blare as he reached his quarters. The door was open. Furniture overturned. No sign of Lyra or Ember. Lieutenant Olivia Scott appeared behind him, breathing heavily. I was coming to warn you, they took her, Jack. 4 Elven royal guards. Ember fought, but they had some kind of containment. Jack felt the patterns, on his arms, burning beneath his uniform. Which way? Olivia pointed toward the Elven Palace. They headed for the temple. I overheard them saying something about preparation for ascension. Jack turned to his oldest friend. I need your help, Liv. But after what I'm about to tell you, your career might be over. Olivia checked her weapon, not like I was planning to retire anyway. Tell me what we're up against, Jack explained as they moved toward the Elven city. Lieutenant Jack Harper stood among rows of human soldiers in the massive crystal hall of the Sylvan Elven Palace. The walls sparkled with light, creating dancing patterns on the marble floor. The war between humans and elves had lasted 5 years and ended only 2 weeks ago with a surprising human victory. Jack felt uncomfortable in his dress uniform. The collar was too tight, and the material too stiff, but protocol demanded proper attire for this important ceremony. The selection as it was, called aloud each decorated human soldier to claim one member of the elven royal family as a bondservant, a fancy term for hostage disguised as a peace offering. Commander Susan Miller paced in front of the assembled soldiers, her boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. She stopped and faced them, her expression serious today. You receive your reward for service to humanity. Choose wisely. Your selection will form the foundation of future relations with the Sylvan Empire. Remember, your choice reflects on Earth and our continued peace. Jack shifted his weight and glanced at his fellow soldiers. They all looked eager, some even greedy. The Elven royals were known for their beauty, magical abilities, and long lives. Having one as a bondservant meant status, power, and access to Elven knowledge. The great doors at the end of the hall swung open. The Elven royal family entered, walking in perfect formation. Their skin glowed with an inner light, and their movements were graceful, like water flowing down a stream. They wore ceremonial armor that caught the light and sent rainbows across the room. Their pointed ears peeked through long silver hair, and their eyes held ancient wisdom. Jack counted 20 Elven royals. All looked strong and proud except for one. At the end of the line walked a small female elf who seemed different from the others. She looked weak by Elven standards. Her skin did not glow as brightly. Her silver hair appeared dull, and her steps were uncertain. She wore no armor, only a simple dress of pale blue. The other elves kept their distance from her as if she carried some disease. But what caught Jack's attention was the small creature perched on her shoulder. It resembled a dragon no bigger than a house cat with scales that shifted colors from blue to purple to green. Its eyes were intelligent and watchful. The tiny dragon bared its teeth whenever anyone got too close to the female elf captain. Emma Woods was the first to choose. She selected a tall male elf with broad shoulders and a stern face. He would serve well as a military advisor. Next, Lieutenant Peter Johnson picked a female elf whose armor suggested she was a master strategist. One by one, the human soldiers made their selections, taking the strongest, most capable elves. Finally, it was Jack's turn. He stepped forward looking at the remaining royals. Most soldiers had chosen based on physical strength, magical reputation, or political importance, but Jack had different plans. He pointed directly at the frail female elf with the dragon. The room fell silent. Even the Elven royals looked surprised, their perfect composure broken for a moment. The Elven High King spoke, his voice cold. "Is this some kind of insult? Human commander?" Miller rushed forward, grabbing Jack's arm. "Harper, what are you doing?" she whispered harshly. "That is Princess Lyra, the weakest of their bloodline. She has no military value, no political weight. Choose someone useful." Jack met the commander's eyes. "I have made my decision." The frail elf Princess Lyra stepped forward. Her dragon grew agitated, its scales turning bright red. Tiny wisps of smoke escaped its nostrils. She placed a calming hand on the creature, and it settled, though its eyes remained fixed. On Jack, Miller looked from Jack to the princess and back again. The rules of the ceremony were clear. Each soldier could choose freely, and the elves had to comply. She stepped back with obvious disapproval. "Very well, Lieutenant Harper, the princess is your bondservant. May your choice serve humanity." The High King motioned for Lyra to go with Jack. She walked toward him with small, careful steps, as if conserving energy. The other elves watched with expressions that mixed relief with curiosity. Some even seemed to be hiding smiles. Jack offered his arm to Princess Lyra in a formal gesture. She hesitated, then placed her delicate hand on his forearm. Her touch was cool and light, barely there. The dragon on her shoulder eyed Jack suspiciously. Jack led her from the hall, aware of the stares following them. Once outside in the corridor, he spoke softly. "I am Lieutenant Jack Harper of the Earth Defense Force." The princess looked up at him. Her eyes were unlike the other elves. Instead of silver or blue, her eyes were deep violet with flecks of gold. I am Lyra, seventh daughter of the Sylvan bloodline. This is Ember, my companion, the dragon. Ember made a chirping sound, and its scales shifted to a deep purple. Why did you choose me, human? Most of your kind seek power or knowledge or beauty. I have none of these to offer you. Jack smiled. There are things more valuable than power, knowledge, or beauty. Your family seemed very eager to be rid of you. I find that interesting. Lyra tensed her fingers, tightening on his arm. They fear what they do not understand. They walked in silence through the palace toward the human quarters assigned to Jack. The architecture was breathtaking, with living trees forming arches and walls, plants providing natural light, and crystal formations serving as furniture. But Jack noticed how Lyra seemed to grow stronger with each step away from the throne room. Her posture straightened, and her steps became more certain. The human compound was built within the elven city, a series of prefabricated structures that looked out of place among the organic elven buildings. Jack led Lyra to his assigned quarters, a small apartment with basic furnishings. Lieutenant Olivia Scott was waiting outside Jack's door. Her eyebrows rose when she saw Lyra and Ember Harper. What were you thinking? Every military advisor suggested choosing someone with tactical value. Jack opened his door, allowing Lyra to enter first. I know exactly what I'm doing. Liv, trust me. Olivia looked unconvinced. The brass is not happy. You passed up a chance to secure valuable intel for what a sickly princess and her pet lizard. Ember hissed at Olivia, its scales turning bright orange. Jack smiled. That lizard, as you call him, is more important than you realize. Give me time. I'll explain everything soon. Inside his quarters. Jack gestured for Lyra to sit. She perched on the edge of a chair, still tense and watchful. Ember climbed down from her shoulder, growing slightly larger, now the size of a small dog. The dragon prowled around the room, inspecting everything. You are not what I expected, Lieutenant Harper, Lyra said. The elven reports described humans as greedy and short-sighted, yet you seem to see things others. Miss Jack sat across from her. I saw you. During the final battle at the Crystal Valley, 3 elven warships were closing in on our position. We were outnumbered, outgunned. Our shields were failing. Lyra went very still. Ember stopped prowling and returned to her side. There was a moment when everything changed, Jack continued. A pulse of energy came from somewhere behind the elven lines. It disrupted your ship's shields. The disruption lasted only seconds, but it was enough for us to target your command vessels and turn the tide of battle. Trace that energy pulse during the confusion. It came from a medical transport ship. I hacked into your military network and found that ship was carrying 1 passenger. Princess Lyra, supposedly being evacuated due to illness. Lyra said nothing, but her eyes widened slightly. Jack leaned forward. Now, why would a supposedly weak princess with no military value emit an energy pulse that changed the course of a battle? And why would that same princess have a dragon companion when dragons were believed extinct for thousands of years? Ember growled low, its scales rippling with patterns of light. Lyra looked down at her hands. I do not know what you mean. Lieutenant Jack sat back. I think you do, princess. But don't worry. Your secret is safe with me. In fact, I want to help you. For the first time since meeting her, Jack saw surprise on Lyra's face. Help me. Why would a human want to help me? Because you're not the only one hiding something, Jack whispered. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing faint patterns on his skin, patterns that glowed softly with the same violet color as Lyra's. Eyes, Lyra gasped. Ember jumped onto her lap, growing larger, his wings unfurling partway. You are a weaver, Jack said. That pulse wasn't an accident. It was you fighting back against your own people. And I think I know why. Outside Jack's window, the 3 moons of the elven world began to align, a rare celestial event that happened once every 10,000 years. According to elven mythology, it was during this alignment that the gods gifted the elves with magic. Lyra looked at the moons, then back at Jack. I have 3 cycles before the alignment is complete. We do not have much time. Jack nodded. Then we better get started.